Hey folks, it's been a difficult couple days trying to process this second Trump victory, and I've been ruminating a lot on kind of post-mortem analysis. So this is what I have, and I'll break it down point by point, and we can start with strategy. The strategy of the Harris-Walz campaign started off really good when Walz was nominated. It really excited the progressive base. He seemed like the perfect model of a new type of progressive politics, which was this Midwestern populism that you created programs like giving kids free school lunch, providing health care, retirement benefits. You know, he seemed like the perfect example of a moderate version of Bernie Sanders, but it was kind of practical. And so that really excited progressives. And then they just put him in a closet. And after the DNC convention, all the talk about going after corporations and price gouging went away. So Harris had this promising confrontational posture where she was going to present her and Walz as the opposition to corporate power. They were going to take on the issue of inflation, or greedflation as they call it. And after the DNC, I don't know if the donors got a hold of them or the consultant class got a hold of them. The next thing you know, you have Mark Cuban and Liz Cheney and, appeals to big business and bipartisanship, and that initial hope of a progressive populist agenda was gone. And you can literally see right when they abandoned that, their poll numbers cratered. They were on the upswing when they were taking a more confrontational populist approach, and they're on the downswing as soon as they shifted gears to this milquetoast appeal to bipartisanship and business-friendly, rhetoric. The second thing that was important was the media strategy, is that they relied on the legacy media and A-list celebrities, whereas Trump inventively and brilliantly adopted an alt media strategy that engaged the podcasting world, the world of independent media on YouTube and streaming. And that's where the audiences for low propensity, weak partisans or non-ideological people are. Those are the people that swing elections. And so while, Kamala was going on The View and MSNBC and, NBC, that, these are not places where you're actually going to reach younger people that could be moved. And Trump, his entire strategy, is obviously like bro podcast, is very masculine, but still it was the places where they're the real movers and shakers of the popular culture, of the new media culture right now. It's not Beyonce and George Clooney. That's like, if we were in the 90s, that'd be like people using, John Travolta or something like, I'm trying to think of an older celebrity, but it's just they're missing the boat. And so Trump's alt media strategy with podcasting and YouTube worked very effectively, and the left has no answer to that. They haven't cultivated ties with the independent alternative media community the way the right has for years. I mean, the only major Democratic congressperson that goes on indie media on YouTube, both left and right, is Ro Khanna. I can't think of anyone else that does it. They're too risk averse. They don't want to have these more free-flowing, conversational 3-hour, format setups, because they're afraid that they'll not stick to their talking points and they won't follow the party line, and they actually expose themselves to be human. And they think that that's a good strategy to dodge these podcasts because they're risk averse, but ultimately the biggest risk is being culturally irrelevant. And if you avoid those podcasts, that's what you'll be, is culturally irrelevant. Turning to the demographic realities of the election results may be the most depressing. That for years, the Republican Party has painted itself as a working class party. And, it started in the 70s with Nixon, but from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, it was only half true. It never completely mapped onto reality. Republicans would get voters from, the income bracket of 50K to 100K. They split the Democratic Party vote with college-educated people, and they generally got the rich, people that make over 100K. In this election, the results are damning in terms of who represents the working class. Trump got voters under 50K for the first time. That's like the working poor and truly working class. He got middle class voters from 50K to 100K. And the only income bracket and he got the majority of non-college educated voters, and he won the popular vote. The only income bracket that Kamala got was people that make over 100K and people that were college educated. If you're trying to be a populist party that's for the working class, that's not the numbers you want. So that's extremely depressing. And then you move even more dire is the ground they made with minority groups. So almost half of Latinos in America voted for Trump, even despite his anti-Mexican and anti-immigrant, I'd say white nationalist kind of stance. They still voted for him. Asians voted for him up like 38%. Native Americans that voted, not that they all, like those percentages, not that high, but the ones that did voted predominantly for Trump, 64%. And then about 20% of black men voted for Trump. It's unprecedented. You've never seen the Republican Party have this degree of racial diversity in modern memory, right? And it's not to say that sexism and racism didn't play a part with people in Harris's defeat, that they would look at that. There's probably a segment, obviously, of Trump supporters that couldn't imagine themselves voting for a black woman, but it really does complicate any race or gender-based explanation for the Democratic defeat. In this election cycle particularly, you can just say it was racism and sexism when so many women and so many, not people of color voted for Trump. Not to mention the fact that Latino men voted for Hillary at way higher numbers than they voted for Harris in 2016. And that if we turn to Mexico, they just voted in a Jewish woman, right, for president. So the machismo wasn't so strong that they wouldn't vote for a woman there. So, this really does question this reductive idea that Kamala lost because of sexism. My final points here are, the left, this fantasy of voting for this Republican moderate was ridiculous. That was the main strategy they took. The Liz Cheney Democrat voter, 94% of Republicans, registered Republicans, voted for the Republican Party. In other words, Trump's registered base was more loyal, not less, after January 6th in this election. So what a stupid strategy. What an idiotic thesis or theory that you would say we're going to get these Republican suburban voters. They all voted Republican. They did not shift to the Democratic Party. And conversely, you lost something like 13 million reportedly. 13 million less registered Democrats voted in this election, right? So rather than going for your Democratic base, progressive base, you went for the fool's gold of this so-called moderate Republican. They keep doing this again and again. I think it's a consultant class. They ignore, the progressive wing, the Bernie wing, and they do it at their peril, and they'll lose again and again if they keep doing this. They refuse to be confrontational toward corporate America. They refuse to distance themselves from Biden's horrendous foreign policy, particularly in regards to Gaza. And then they're shocked that they lose the election. Lastly, there is a global pattern of incumbents losing in the post-pandemic world, from South Korea to Africa. That's like across the globe, incumbents have lost. So there are some deeper structural realities that caused inflation. What do you expect? You have this global shutdown. You think economies are just going to recover in an election cycle from such a severe, historic impact? No, they're not. But voters are going to blame whoever's in power on that. If Trump would have won 2020, he would have been blamed for the inflation, and he wouldn't have done anything about it. But I digress. It's the reality we're in. So that's my take on the whole post 2024 election results. We'll see where we're going from here. Hopefully, maybe it'll set the stage for like a real populist left, and finally get rid of these clowns in the establishment Democratic Party that tell us to tack to the center, and we'll do some soft neoliberalism and do these milquetoast campaigns where you're making appeals to bipartisanship. Hopefully that'll die from here on out. I doubt it, but that's my hope. All right, take care, folks.